Welcome to a special edition of Offroad X Files where the trail meets the unknown. I'm your host, Jimmy Toungate, and this is the Legend of MarcSquatch, a Sasquatch tale of debunking. Last weekend was the first ever Sasquatch Beyond the Footprint Festival in Randle, Washington, and I was incredibly honored to be the host of this brand new event. It was an epic time, but one of the highlights for me was the speaker panel in Town Hall. I got to ask a bunch of questions, but there was one that I was particularly interested in hearing the answers to, and that was, have you ever been fooled by a hoax or natural phenomenon that you initially thought was something more? And what did you learn from that experience? Now, I knew about a third of the panel already knew the backstory to this question, and I wanted to get their take as well as everyone else's. So let me tell you what happened. Some of us were camping at the venue, and we had an amazing get-together around the fire pit on Saturday night. It was one of the most epic parties I've ever been to, and one that people will be talking about for years. At around 1:20 a.m., everybody decided to call it a night. But a few minutes later, my phone started blowing up with text messages. Did you hear that vocalization at 1:32 a.m.? Were there any recorders deployed? One of them said, I definitely just heard what sounded like a squatch. But I go to sleep pretty quick, and I was already knocked out, so I didn't see the messages until the next morning about 7 a.m. Once I got up, word began to spread really quickly that we might have a solid vocalization on our hands. One of our friends told us she had been in a porta potty in the pitch black and had clearly heard a yell nearby. We started interviewing people, recording video statements from witnesses, and asking other campers if they had heard anything. Within a short amount of time, we were able to solve the mystery. The Sasquatch was actually our good friend Mark Marcel, who we've now dubbed MarcSquatch. He had just let out a celebratory yell before he went to bed, and when he heard what was going on, he immediately confessed. Since I'd been really busy emceeing the event, I waited until after the festival to review the audio recorder that we had deployed that evening. We put that recorder out because earlier in the day on Saturday, I had heard a scream that sounded a lot like Mark's, but it was around 11:20, and he was back over at the venue where all the speakers were, and I had just introduced Barb Shoop and had ridden my scooter back over to my rig to change t-shirts because it was getting kind of warm when I heard this really loud scream. Another camper and good friend, Janice, was also present when this happened, and I went over and I was like, did you hear that? And she said, yeah, I heard that. What was it? We quickly figured out that it couldn't have been Barb's presentation because we couldn't hear her speaking at that time, and she wasn't playing any vocalizations like that. So we decided to put a recorder out in that area. Since I was busy emceeing the event, I waited until after the festival to review the audio. I'd heard 10 hours of all sorts of wildlife, from frogs, crows, geese, bats, a lot of coyote yips, barks, howls, and then there it was. That magical moment of the scream. But wait, there was more, folks. In addition to the yell, there was a long and softer woo that was followed by a couple of whoops. So I reached out to Mark, and we pieced it together. He talked to a group of campers nearby who he was friends with, and we were able to determine that the long woo and the last whoop was made by a female camper. Mark had made the first scream and then the louder whoop. I'm going to play that audio for you now, and we can review the vocal signatures in the Spectrum Analyzer in Adobe Audition so you can see the differences for yourself. Okay, what I'm going to do is play these series of vocalizations for you 3 times so you can compare the vocalizations and the signatures to each other, and you can clearly see the differences between the male and the female and also the distances. So here we go. First up is going to be Mark's Sasquatch scream. That's followed by the female camper's softer woo. And then next up is Mark's whoop, followed by the female camper's. While none of the recorded vocalizations turned out to be our forest friends, it is important to share this story. Debunking is an essential part of every investigation. You have to validate evidence before you present it. If you publish bad evidence, it not only creates distress from the viewers or listeners, it creates distress for the entire community. It's what separates honest research from storytelling. What do you think about the importance of debunking in these investigations? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thank you for joining me for this special edition of Offroad X Files. Until next time, keep looking, keep exploring, and remember, out there in the darkness between the trees are the questions and the answers.